14 years ago, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami unleashed devastation on an unimaginable scale, triggering the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster and shaking Japan's faith in atomic energy to its very core. The world watched in horror as the tsunami's waves crashed over the plant's defenses, leading to catastrophic meltdowns and a crisis that would haunt the nation for years to come. The meltdown forced an unprecedented nationwide shutdown of all nuclear reactors, plunging the country into an immediate and severe energy crisis. Rolling blackouts swept through cities, businesses struggled to keep the lights on, and Japan was forced to import vast amounts of fossil fuels to meet its energy needs. This sudden shift ignited a fierce and emotional debate about the future of nuclear power in Japan, dividing communities and policymakers alike. Public trust in both the government and the nuclear industry evaporated almost overnight. Haunting images of explosions, radiation leaks, and mass evacuations dominated the news, leaving deep psychological scars. For many Japanese citizens, the fear of invisible radiation and the pain of displacement became a daily reality, fueling anger and suspicion that lingered long after the initial crisis. Japan, once a global leader and champion of nuclear technology, turned away from atomic power in a deeply emotional and collective response. Massive anti-nuclear protests swept the nation, and public opinion shifted dramatically against nuclear energy, demanding a new direction for the country's future. Now, in 2025, the silence at nuclear plants is ending. The government, facing mounting energy insecurity, rising fuel costs, and the urgent pressures of climate change, is cautiously restarting reactors. New safety protocols, upgraded technology, and stricter oversight are being implemented to regain public trust and ensure that past mistakes are not repeated. This dramatic shift is driven by volatile global energy markets, the soaring cost of imported fuels, and the urgent need to cut carbon emissions to meet international climate commitments. Renewable energy sources like wind and solar are expanding, but for now, nuclear power is seen as a necessary part of Japan's energy mix. Japan's journey from total nuclear shutdown to a cautious restart is a story of necessity, compromise, and ongoing controversy. The decision to bring reactors back online has sparked passionate debate, with some seeing it as a pragmatic solution while others fear repeating the tragedies of the past. The nation is still trying to reconcile its traumatic past with the demands of a rapidly changing world. Memorials and education programs remind new generations of the disaster's lessons, even as communities rebuild and look to the future with cautious hope. In this video, we'll explore why Japan made the difficult decision to shut down its reactors, what has changed in the years since, and the high-stakes gamble of its nuclear comeback. We'll examine the risks, the hopes, and the unresolved questions that define this new era. The story of Fukushima isn't over, it's entering a new, uncertain chapter. As Japan stands at a crossroads, the world is watching to see what lessons will be learned, and what the future holds for nuclear power in a nation forever changed by disaster. The Fukushima disaster began on March 11, 2011, when a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck off the northeastern coast of Japan. It was one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded in the country, shaking buildings hundreds of kilometers away and sending shockwaves through the nation. The ground trembled violently, and alarms blared at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant as the earth moved beneath it. In response, the plant's safety systems triggered an automatic reactor shutdown. Control rods were inserted to halt the nuclear reactions, and for a brief moment, it seemed the worst had been avoided. But the real crisis began less than an hour later. A massive tsunami, generated by the earthquake, surged toward the coast. The waves, some over 40 feet high, overwhelmed the plant's seawalls and flooded the facility, knocking out the backup diesel generators that powered the cooling systems. With no electricity, the cooling systems failed. The reactors, still hot from recent operation, began to overheat as emergency workers scrambled in the darkness, desperately trying to restore power and prevent catastrophe. Despite their efforts, reactor cores overheated, leading to partial meltdowns in 3 of the plant's 6 units. The intense heat melted fuel rods, damaging the containment structures designed to keep radiation inside. Hydrogen gas built up and exploded, tearing through containment buildings. Plumes of radioactive material escaped into the air, contaminating land, sea, and sky. Over 160,000 residents were forced to evacuate their homes, fleeing the invisible threat of radiation. Many would never return, leaving behind entire towns frozen in time. The cleanup and decontamination effort is massive, involving thousands of workers and advanced robotics. Experts estimate it will take decades to complete and cost hundreds of billions of dollars, with the long-term environmental impact still uncertain. The disaster was rated level 7, the highest on the International Nuclear Event Scale, putting it on par with the infamous Chernobyl accident. The world watched as Japan struggled to contain the crisis. The Fukushima disaster shattered the myth of nuclear safety in Japan, sparking widespread protests and a national debate about the future of atomic energy. It forced a nationwide reckoning with the risks of atomic power, leading to the shutdown of many reactors and a dramatic shift in energy policy. Even today, the scars of Fukushima are visible. The disaster continues to shape every energy decision Japan makes, driving investment in renewables and leaving a lasting legacy on the nation's landscape and psyche. In the aftermath of the Fukushima disaster, Japan made a momentous decision. It shut down all of its nuclear reactors, a move that sent shockwaves through the nation's energy sector and left the country facing an unprecedented challenge. With nuclear power offline, Japan was suddenly confronted with a massive energy gap. Cities that once glowed brightly at night now faced the threat of rolling blackouts, and the nation's energy planners scrambled to find alternatives. To keep the lights on, Japan turned to fossil fuels, importing record amounts of liquefied natural gas, coal, and oil from overseas. Shipments of fuel arrived daily at Japanese ports, fueling power stations across the country. Before the shutdown, nuclear energy supplied about 30% of Japan's electricity. But with reactors offline, fossil fuels quickly filled the void, providing nearly 90% of the nation's power and fundamentally altering Japan's energy landscape. This dramatic shift came at a steep price. Energy costs soared, straining the budgets of ordinary families and forcing businesses to cut back or even shut down operations. Factories faced higher bills, and some struggled to remain competitive. The economic impact rippled outward. Japan's long-standing trade surplus vanished, replaced by persistent deficits as the country spent billions on expensive fuel imports. The nation's economic stability was suddenly at risk. Reliance on volatile global energy markets left Japan exposed to sudden price spikes and geopolitical tensions. Every fluctuation in oil or gas prices was felt by Japanese consumers and businesses alike. Environmentally, the consequences were dire. Carbon emissions soared to new heights, undermining Japan's climate commitments and sparking public concern about air quality and the nation's environmental future. Japan's energy self-sufficiency plummeted to just 6%. One of the lowest rates among developed countries. The nation became more dependent than ever on foreign energy sources, raising questions about long-term security. The mounting economic and environmental toll of fossil fuel dependence forced Japan to reconsider its stance on nuclear power. Debates reignited, and policymakers began to weigh the risks and benefits anew. As the nation searched for a sustainable and secure energy future, attention turned to renewables and innovation. The journey to balance safety, affordability, and environmental responsibility was back on the national agenda. In 2022, Japan's government reversed course, announcing a return to nuclear power. The new Green Transformation Plan aims to stabilize energy supply and meet carbon neutrality goals. The government is restarting reactors that passed strict post-Fukushima safety checks. 12 are already back online. Operating lifespans for reactors are being extended, and next-generation designs like small modular reactors are in development. Nuclear is expected to provide up to 22% of Japan's electricity by 2030. Officials argue nuclear is essential for energy security and climate targets. Supporters tout economic and environmental benefits, insisting safety is now paramount. The nuclear comeback is framed as a necessary step for Japan's future. Japan's nuclear revival has reignited fierce debate. Supporters, government, business, and industry argue nuclear is vital for energy security, economic stability, and climate goals. They say renewables can't reliably power Japan's economy, and that new safety standards make another Fukushima unlikely. Critics, activists, opposition politicians, and many citizens warn that no reactor is truly safe in earthquake-prone Japan. They highlight the unresolved nuclear waste problem and the risks of another disaster. Many advocate for a rapid shift to renewables and energy conservation instead. The ongoing struggles of Fukushima evacuees and the cost of cleanup fuel public mistrust. The nuclear debate remains deeply polarized and emotional. Restarting a nuclear reactor in Japan is a complex, expensive process. Each plant must pass rigorous safety reviews, including seismic upgrades and new tsunami defenses. These improvements cost billions per reactor, raising questions about economic viability. Local consent is crucial. Many communities remain skeptical or outright opposed. Grassroots opposition has delayed or blocked several restarts. Most reactors are aging, with many nearing or exceeding their original lifespans. Extending their use raises safety and cost concerns. The industry also faces a shortage of skilled workers after a decade-long hiatus. Rebuilding expertise will take years. The path to a nuclear revival is slow, costly, and uncertain. Public opinion in Japan has shifted since Fukushima. Immediately after the disaster, most people opposed nuclear power, but rising energy costs and climate concerns have softened some opposition. Recent polls show a slim majority now support restarting existing reactors, though new construction remains unpopular. Many see nuclear as a necessary evil rather than a preferred solution. Trust in government and industry is still low, especially near nuclear sites. Regional differences are stark. Support is lowest in areas most affected by Fukushima. The public remains cautious, balancing economic needs with deep-seated safety fears. Major challenges still haunt Japan's nuclear future. High-level radioactive waste has no permanent disposal site. No community wants it. Japan's seismic risks make critics question the wisdom of nuclear power in such a volatile region. Stricter safety standards exist, but black swan disasters can't be ruled out. Critics argue Japan has underinvested in renewables like wind and geothermal. The focus on nuclear, they say, diverts resources from truly sustainable energy. The ongoing Fukushima cleanup is a stark reminder of nuclear's long-term costs. These unresolved issues cast a long shadow over Japan's energy strategy. 14 years after Fukushima, Japan stands at a crossroads. Nuclear power offers stable, carbon-free electricity and shields the economy from global shocks. Proponents see it as essential for prosperity and climate action. But the risks, earthquakes, waste, and public mistrust, remain profound. Critics warn Japan may be trading one crisis for another by doubling down on nuclear. The nation's energy future depends on balancing security, sustainability, and public trust. The stakes are high and the outcome is uncertain. Japan's nuclear saga is far from over.